Composting is really earth friendly. It's a great way to reuse, recycle, and cut down on things that we throw away. But it's just, and not only that, but it does great things for your garden. This is my big compost pile here, and I'm going to show you some other ways that I compost as well. But this pile right here is left over from last fall. I've saved all my leaves. I have a number of trees here, and I figure every different tree is a different compost, you know, every different leaf. And I have my sons come out here. It's a great little job for them. I say, will you go out and turn the compost? And so, sure enough, they will. They'll turn it. And the reason why we turn it is we've got to get the action of the compost happens inside, in the center of the pile.
Oh, you can even see.
Yeah, you can see the wet. You can see how it's breaking down more in the center of the pile. And we need to move that around. That's where you've got the little microbes and
look at that. It's
microorganisms in there that are working to break it down. Well, we want to move it. And the more often you move it, the faster your compost will break down. And the sooner you can use it. So I was saying, some more things I use from my property are grass clippings, but you need to set your grass clippings aside and let them dry out in the sun.
Oh, okay.
You don't want to add the fresh grass clippings because you know what happens when you have a pile of fresh grass clippings? It gets all wet and black and after a while. So you need to just let it dry out.
That's not the correct way to compost with grass.
Yeah.
You can use grass. Even if you fertilize your grass and
yeah.
Okay.
I don't like to put weeds in my compost. You can, but I've found that I will get weeds in my square foot garden. So
and we're trying to cut out the weeds.
Yeah.
So I
decided to not use those. But also what's in this pile here is all of the leftover vegetable clippings from my gardens.
Okay.
I will take those right out of my gardens, put them right in my compost pile. So a few more ingredients for a compost pile. I like to put in my chicken manure. In fact, sometimes I'll let my chickens out and let them scratch around out here, and they'll move the compost for me, and they'll leave their manure in it, and that's a real good ingredient to add.
But if you don't have chickens?
Yeah, if you don't have chickens, you can always add, you can always go buy a bag of chicken manure and add it to your compost that you're getting. But there's a handy way to remember how to do your compost, and it's the 4 M's.
Okay, the 4 M's.
Yes. The first one is mix, and that means we want to use a variety of different components, a variety of different organic ingredients. Anything that grows, you can add to your compost. The second M is mash, and that stands for mashing, chopping up. We want to get it nice in small pieces as much as possible. So when I pick up my leaves, I'll pick them up with a shredder, you know, and as I'm picking up my leaves or blowing with my blower. And then the next M is moisten, and we need to keep our pile somewhat moist. And so what I'll do is, if I'm out watering flowers or working around the yard, I'll just shoot the water over here to the compost pile and wet down the compost pile a little bit. Now we just want to moisten. We don't want to get it too damp, but just moisten it. We don't want it too wet. And then the last M is move. And that's what we just did. We were just moving it. And like I said, the more often you move it, if you can move it every day or twice a day, you're going to get the compost that much faster. If you just decide to move it once a week or once a month, it'll take longer.
And we need it
to
put back into our boxes when we're rotating our crops.
This is what will replenish the nutrients in our garden. It's our compost. Now this is one big pile, but what you could actually do with this is move it over all into one pile here and then leave it, and then the next day just move it back where it was before. So you don't really need a really big space to have your compost pile. You can keep it in quite a small space. And I happen to have a lot of room on my property, so I can have these big piles wherever I need them.
So what if you are maybe nervous about having big piles of leaves? Maybe you have rambunctious boys that you're worried may get into your compost. What other options do you have for composting?
Hey, if the boys get into the compost, they're going to move it for you. Okay, well, this is something you've probably seen. This is a little composter unit, and I've had this for a couple of years, and it's handy. I think I found that leaving my piles out in the yard, probably my things break down a little faster for some reason. But this is easy to and handy. It's closer to the house. And what I've done is I've got this container that I keep right next to my kitchen sink. So these are the things that we can get right out of our kitchen that we can add to our compost. I've got some sweet potato. Now you notice that peelings are great. I chopped up my banana peels. And we're just going to add this right to our compost. It's been sitting there a while. Yeah. Looks like I had orange peels in it and some other things. But, and then we can spray that down a little bit too with some water. But the nice thing about this too is you just close it up. And then you just turn it. Turn it like that. And then when you're ready to use a lot of it, bring your opening right down here. And then you can have your wheelbarrow or bucket right down here and just sort of dump it in like that. But you'll see in here that I've got some finished compost, and sometimes I'll just go through and find some. And
wow, it does. It looks just like dirt.
And once there's some worms in there, once it's ready to go to put on your garden, it's darker color, and you can't really recognize anything in particular in it. So yeah, it'll look like dirt, and that's when you know it's ready. You can put it on your garden.
So I have a silly question. Did you put worms in, or they just appear?
I didn't put worms in here, and yeah, there must have been eggs in some of the things that I put in.
But worms are really good for your composting.
Yeah, I'm excited to see worms in here. You don't have to spend a lot of money on something like this. I have a great story of my mom who really wanted a garden right on her deck. Really handy to go out and tend and enjoy. And she was really desirous to learn about composting. So she just had the smallest little bucket, a little cleaning bucket, and she kept a little spray bottle right beside it and a little stick to turn it. And she just got so excited about this great compost she was making. She would just clip off leaves from the flowers and bushes and things that came off of her kitchen, her cooking, and she'd just put those in that bucket, spray it, keep it moist, turn it. She had the nicest, blackest compost in a little bucket right on her deck.
So you really don't need anything, and that's nice, because if you were to buy from like a nursery the compost or like the really great enriched soil, it's really expensive.
Yes.
And here you can do the whole thing for free with stuff that you normally you'd just be throwing away.
You can. You really can.
So let me ask you, is there anything that you absolutely should not ever put into your compost?
Well, that's a good thing to talk about. And basically, you only want to put into your compost things that have been growing. So no, we don't want any types of protein products. We don't want any meats or anything like that. You can put eggshells a little bit now and then, just remember too, never too much of one thing.
What about mayonnaise? I've heard mayonnaise is a bad one. That's on a Curious George.
Yeah, mayonnaise, no, because that's not something that's been growing so much. But you know, all of your celery clippings, your potato peels, your all of your vegetable waste that now you don't have to throw into the garbage, but you can put out in your compost, and it actually becomes something of more value to you.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, if you have young kids, there is a Curious George all about composting. And so if you look at pbs.org, I'm sure you can find it. It's a Curious George all about composting and how he makes everything grow better with the compost. And it's gotten my kids actually really excited about composting.
Let's review those things that we can add to our compost, or that we can use to make compost. First of all, you can use wood, like chopped branches. You could even use strips of newspaper. That comes from trees. We can use bits of straw. We can use sawdust. We can also add dirt from our yard. Maybe something that doesn't have much, we don't want too much of it, because we don't want to have the problem of weed seeds in it. We can use dry grass clippings. Leaves are really good. I think leaves are one of my favorites. And all of the leftover clippings and waste from our garden, never throw that away. Put that right in our compost. Chop it up as much as you can. We talked about manures. You might have neighbors who have chickens, and you can get some manure from them. Rabbit manure is really good.
Oh, I bet there's a couple people that have rabbits for their kids.
Rabbits are easy to take care of. You might have a question about pine needles. I've heard that they're pretty acidic, so it's probably okay to chop a few up. I wouldn't put too many in your compost, and of course dried ones would be better. Okay, so here's some compost that is ready to use to add to our garden. This will replenish the nutrients in our soil, in our maize mix. And what I'm going to do is, since I want to get this square ready, I'm just going to add 1 trowel full to this square, and I'm going to mix it in, and that's going to prepare it for the next vegetable that I want to add.
Because this is the only thing we add back in, the vermiculite and the peat moss we don't need to ever add again, but it's the nutrients we need to keep adding back in. And that's the important part of composting and square foot gardening.
Exactly. The compost is what rejuvenates our soil, and like you said, that peat moss and the vermiculite will remain here. And we really conserve those products because we just use them the one time when we first set up our garden and made our maize mix. And now we can continue our garden by just adding the compost that we've made ourselves.
And again, I want to point out, never is Belinda going to get a rototiller out, a big shovel. This is as hard of the labor as it is. Anybody can do this.
It's actually fun.
Remember to keep checking back, because Belinda with HomeGardensToGo.com, the square foot gardening expert, will actually be here longer than just this week of square foot gardening classes, but she will be here every week telling us more about gardening and taking us through the entire process all summer long, because you want us to be successful, right?
I do, and I really appreciate you involving me, because I'm really excited to help everybody.
So make sure you check out her website, HomeGardensToGo.com. Remember, she has the boxes, the dirt, the weed cloth. She delivers to more than just Utah. But if you do live in Utah, she'll actually come and set it up for you and bring the dirt. So for more tips and tricks for using food storage every day, visit www.everydayfoodstorage.net and HomeGardensToGo.com.